Hello everyone, welcome back for another episode of 10-Minute Drawing Techniques. This is episode 14 on doodling with your host, Mark Chong. If you'd like, you can visit the webpage at 10minutedrawing.blogspot.com, and you can post your comments and whatnot over there and see all the other episodes. So anyway, this episode is on doodling, and what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you a bit of an interesting drawing technique. If you've done all your homework and you've practiced being able to draw things in perspective, being able to draw, things like being able to draw your planes, being able to draw your cubes, being able to draw ellipses, doing these things in perspective. Once you've got this down, then we can start getting into some pretty fun stuff. And when you want to doodle, some people think of, the first thing that comes to mind when I talk about doodling is people call doodling this. Scribble, 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 scribble. But now that you have perspective knowledge, if you've done your homework and you've practiced your perspective knowledge, and you know how to make lines curve through space, and you know how to draw these cubes and stuff, you can draw lines that pass over the surface. You can doodle in perspective. So I'm drawing this long squiggly curve on a surface, and this is a really good way to get detail, and get a drawing in fast. The other reason why it's important to be able to doodle in perspective is because this is a useful technique for when you want to paint. If I draw this, if you can draw the cross sections over this this kind of abstract shape and make it look three-dimensional, then you can also doodle and make it look three-dimensional. This means that if you can master this art of being able to doodle in 3 dimensions, then every line you put down can have a 3-dimensional quality to it. And this is where the drawing starts to look really effortless. So if I wanted to draw a person, and I'm going to draw him, not using I can maybe mark the top of his head, mark the bottom of his head, mark maybe the pit of the neck. Let's see. I can now figure, okay, what's the general flow? I want the hip to be about there, being in a torso there. Let's put the finger about, one of his fingers pointing about there. And let's see, let's put a leg. I want the foot to hit, more or less travel down there. So I'm just using my point to point and curve to curve to create this kind of thing. And there we go. Actually, I'm going to let that arm drop back a bit. Figure about the wrist is going to be about here. Just letting my mind fill in the gaps. Where's the elbow going to be? Okay, so now if I want, I can doodle over the whole form. Ear, just making sure that my lines always pass over areas in perspective. No, the sound hasn't cut out. It's just that there's really not a lot to talk about, except that all I'm doing is I'm just making my lines pass over the surface. Maybe I should do a clothing tutorial later on. And the nice thing about it is, now here's where you get the actual happy accidents. Except it's not really an accident. You're just setting up the proper conditions for the happy accident to occur. And so all of my lines are just curves on surface. They all pass over. And I mentioned earlier that it was very important to be able to doodle in perspective, how it was important to painting. And the reason for that is, whenever you're painting, we deal with maybe three-dimensional forms, but we don't necessarily have the liberty of being able to draw every single line that we know is there. You generally only draw the lines that you see. So you're constantly drawing shapes and patches of light. But the one thing you can be certain of is that the patches of light will always pass over a surface. And the shape of the patches of light is going to be governed by the planes, of the shape. And the boundaries of that shape are going to be defined by a curve on surface. So this is a really good technique to be able to practice and hone, so that whenever you're painting, you're dealing with things like dappled shadows over tree branches. The shadows, they wrap over surfaces. The lighting always tends to wrap over the surface. Highlights don't wrap over surface, but when you're dealing with patterns of light with painting, then you'll find that this turns out to be a really useful skill. And now that I actually, more or less see what I'm doing, I don't have to doodle as much. My drawing can become a little more direct, but it's a nice little skill to have, so give it a shot. It's a lot of fun, and it's not so mind-racking either. Usually all you got to worry about is just making sure that your lines pass over the surface. And the whole time I'm just thinking of my subject. Okay, anyway, catch you guys later.